Okay, so we're here with James Coyne of RT Tuning. I'm Stephanie from Data Here to There. This is a really fantastic shop. Can you tell me a bit about how you got started?
Yeah, we started in 2005 as a much smaller operation with just 2 employees at the time. And the past nearly 20 years have grown to a much larger facility with 13 full-time employees. We do brick and mortar part sales, and we do installations, dyno tuning, and have one of the largest state-of-the-art shops on the East Coast.
Fantastic. So how did you get into Euro and new JDM?
Well, we've always been JDM. When we opened, that was the market. In 2004, 2005 area, everything was very fast and furious driven. So it was Honda, Acura were the mainstays, and slowly but surely, Subaru, Mitsubishi, those cars started becoming very popular, very tunable. The aftermarket support for them exploded. So we bought an all-wheel drive dyno a few years later to support that market as well. So we have 2 dynos at that point to support both all-wheel drive and just 2-wheel drive tuning. And then as the years went on, we saw kind of a maturation with our customer base where some of the guys were moving out of those types of cars and into newer European cars because of the power potential they had, like the Volkswagen Audis, Mercedes AMGs, BMWs. But we didn't want to stop working on the cars we've always been known for, so we've done both.
Seems like a natural way to expand.
Yeah, pretty organic, and just slowly but surely it has grown over the years. And we find no matter what, we have about the capacity to serve about 2,500 cars a year for our type of market. So it fluctuates. You know, some years there's a little more Euro, some years a little more JDM. And then there's also modern muscle and exotics thrown in there, but at a smaller percentage.
That's a lot of cars serviced every year.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
Okay, so the answer to the question why that particular kind of car is just basically that's driven by your customers and the demand, or is there anything else about those types of cars that you particularly like?
Yeah, so for the last several years, essentially since we moved to this building, we've wanted to focus on the latest cars in the market and the ones that had the most potential. And from a shop flow standpoint, it's better for us to be the first ones to touch it. So we found at that point that it was better for us if we focused on new late model performance cars instead of trying to work on the cars that were already 10, 15 years old. So we started making a big push for that, basically for shop efficiency. It's much easier to schedule and install knowing you're the first one to do it and how long it's going to take than it is to try and figure out something that maybe 2 or 3 other people have been involved in. And now we're the last stop and we're trying to fix someone else's mess, which we still do, but we like being able to plan our in and out work because we book out several weeks in advance.
What is your favorite car to tune and why?
That's tough. So favorite and most common here, about 30% of the cars we tune are Subaru. I own a Subaru, which is fairly recent. I've had a lot of cars over the years, but I just bought one recently. But the Subarus in general, because they have such a wild range of power that they can make and such a huge scope of a build, you know, it could be as simple as just a catback and a tune, or it could be a full-blown type of engine build with trans upgrade and built motor, big turbo. So you could have the same car making anywhere from 300 horsepower to 700 horsepower. And that's pretty interesting to me. Also that clientele, Subaru owners they're very passionate about that community, those cars. They want to do everything Subaru, go to Subaru shows, and it's a fun community to be involved with.
I used to have a Forester myself.
Yeah.
And I got it secondhand, and when it was getting close to the end of its life, I sold it to this German guy who was a mechanic, and he was only ever willing to buy Subarus. And so he bought basically 2 very used Subarus, and he basically like fused the 2 halves together to make one car.
And we've done that from time to time too, where we've taken some known good cars and kind of mashed them up into one really good car. So.
What are your plans for the Nissan 400Z that you picked up?
Well, one, if I'm on camera letting you call it a 400Z, I will never hear the end of it from my community.
Please correct me. He's the car
It is
guy.
the Nissan Z.
You wrote that question. Nissan Z.
You drove the 400.
Yeah, it was only ever in publications, but it was never a Nissan thing. So it's just the Z.
Okay.
And our plans are to continue to support that market. When we first started off with Honda, the other major brand we were tuning at that point was Nissan. And that was at that point the 350Z, because that was the newest model. And we've been tuning Nissans now for as long as we've been open. And collectively, employees and the owner here, we've owned many of them. And currently, I think there's 3 or 4 of them that are owned by employees of the company at this point. We also have a new Z at the moment, which is currently on loan to a manufacturer for product development, which we have done several times actually. We've loaned it to several different parts manufacturers so that they could prototype their parts and release and get these products to market quicker, because we had better luck getting a car than some of the manufacturers were able to.
Wow. So what's your own personal favorite vehicle?
It's hard to say. Working at a place like this, you see such a wide variety of cars, and I really do like all cars. But if I had to pick just one, it would be a 66 Mustang, because that was my first car. And that's what got me into cars. So, special place.
Okay, in your opinion, what's the most underrated car for tuning potential?
Underrated, depends on what you're talking about as far as tuning potential, because there's plenty of slow cars that are a lot of fun that get overlooked because they can't make the big power, but some minor changes can make them even better. ND2 Miata, for example, is a perfect example of that. Not a very fast car, but a very fun car. But in terms of power, base model Infiniti Q50s, they make less than 300 horsepower in stock form, and with just a tune, you're up over 400. There's not many cars in that price range that you can double the horsepower output for less than $1,000.
All right, what have been some of the biggest challenges or surprises for your crew in building R2G tuning?
Finding a way to operate at the level that we do. When I came on board 12 years ago, we had to learn how to say no. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges, because we're still a relatively new business at that point, and pretty well known already, well established. We had been in business at that point 8 years or so. But we were working on cars that weren't the best use of our time in some cases. So we had to get good at the art of saying no and doing it politely so that we could still hopefully help that person in the future. And once we started doing that, it allowed the quality of our work for the cars that we wanted to work on improve tremendously. And over the years, that has just helped us grow and grow and grow. We've gotten very good at the chassis that we work on, and we're constantly looking for new ones to see what the kind of potential is. Whether that be buying development cars to try it out ourselves, or just working with local previous customers who bought new cars. That's really helped us out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we come from a small company as well that we've been building up since 2016, and we found the exact same thing. Like early on, you take on whatever customers come your way. Sometimes that ends up not being the best direction.
For sure.
But you just learn a tremendous amount by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And either way, you're learning something. Whether that's not a market you want to be in, or what you can improve upon. I think while we were talking earlier, we spoke about a car that we've never worked on before, which was a 72 Bronco. We're not a muscle car shop. We're not a truck restoration shop. We worked on a very significant build for this customer, though, for over a year. And the things we learned along the way and how we pulled it off impressed all of us. We learned how to communicate better, how to meet deadlines better, and this is after we had already been in business for 16, 17 years. So finding a way to improve upon those processes and tackling on something that was outside of our comfort zone, I think really helped our team as a whole, because the scope of that project involved everybody in this building.
That's right. Always new things to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, what would you say have been some of your biggest wins as a company?
I think our biggest wins, employee retention. A lot of the guys who have been here a very long time. Like I mentioned, I myself have been here 12 years. Our service manager, he's probably nearing the 15-year mark. Our lead tech, 18 years. Service writer, Dave, 8 years now, I think. I've worked in several automotive shops. There's usually a lot more turnover than that, whether it be, the job isn't what you thought it was, or somebody's just offering better money, or you're tired of working on cars, that can happen. But we have a really good, solid team here, and that's a huge win, because without that, none of this is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm starting to understand just how knowledge intensive this type of business is.
It can be. If you want to treat it like a business and grow it the way we did, you have to treat it that way.
What would you say about the state of the automotive parts industry at the present time?
I think it's still recuperating a bit from some of the issues that happened during 2020 with COVID. I think there's still some parts that are artificially too expensive that shouldn't be, and that's keeping some people from getting involved or from modifying their cars. Because you saw some things had tremendous price increases in a very short period of time, either because of the shipping to get them here to the country, or the cost of materials, the cost of the manpower to make them. A lot of that stuff has seemed to have gotten a lot better. I know the shipping rates certainly have, but some of the ones that were using that as an excuse to justify their price increases, they have not dialed back those price increases in many cases. So when the manufacturers were saying, oh, it's the shipping, and that's why now everything's 20% more, and now the shipping's back to where it was 3 years ago, but things are still 20% more, yeah.
So do you see that as getting dialed back down? Like, where do you see the industry going over the next few years?
I hope so, because it is a pain point for the end user, and it's keeping some people from getting involved or wanting to do this. Our labor rate has increased modestly over the years, basically a cost of living adjustment every year. But the parts price increases, for something that could have normally been done for $1,000 for it to now be $1,500, it's a significant difference. And it's either making people wait or just choose not to do it, or even worse, find cheaper ways to do it by using maybe not as good of a manufacturer as you would normally recommend, or finding a private label type of part that might not fit as well or perform as well, or buy used parts, things like that, which, there's nothing wrong with used parts, but when they get brought to a shop like us to install, that can be frustrating sometimes, because you never know what you're going to get. You don't know if they're in good condition, if they have all the hardware, if it's even the right thing. Just because a seller on Marketplace said it would fit doesn't necessarily mean it does. And we run into that from time to time. We're able to work around it, but I think there's still some pricing corrections that need to happen on some of the parts ends of things. But overall, the industry is still very strong. People always want to modify their cars. They want to make them unique. They want to customize them. I don't think that's ever going to end, regardless of what happens with cars in general. We're a performance shop, obviously, but we also work on Teslas, and those people like to modify their cars too. We can't make them faster per se, but we can do lots of other stuff to them.
Speaking of online marketplaces, so you have a nice e-commerce site. When did you decide to get into the e-commerce side?
Which time? So we've done it a lot of times over the years, where when we first opened, we were very early to that, and the software was limiting back then, because you almost had to be an engineer that could build the website and the back end and everything, so it was much harder. And then eBay made that a little simpler. So at a certain point, we sold a decent amount of parts on eBay in the probably 2005 to 10 range. And then when I came on board, we tried another manufacturer. The name escapes me, but it was a subscription fee you paid into, and you got a data for it. But it never quite worked as intended. So we would kind of flip it like a switch off and on, whether it was working or not. And then for several years, we just didn't do any e-commerce at all. We just focused on what was in our four walls here to really grow and perfect that. And then decided I believe it was 2020, towards the end of 2020, that we really need to revamp our current website, and we wanted to make it like a really, nice comparable to, other, prestigious shops types of websites. And that's when we started looking around for a person that could build it, somebody that could integrate data from our warehouses to make it a little easier to use. And so that's when we truly gave it the effort, I would say.
Yeah, I believe that we at Data Here to There met your, people from your shop back in mid-2021, according to my record.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 2021.
Did you already have the Turn 14 to BigCommerce app installed at that time, or was that part of?
We did not.
Okay.
That was all new. We didn't have a functioning e-commerce site at that point. It was what we had then was basically a WordPress site that I built over the course of a weekend and tweaked, and had another guy who we've worked with for a few years dress it up and make it look nice. But it didn't have the functionality to buy any parts on the website. And we found that a bit limiting because we would have new customers sometimes that would go on the site and see the work we do and just assume we don't sell parts, so they would automatically buy parts and then schedule their appointment and say, hey, I bought all this stuff, can you install it? And then when we tell them, well, we could have gotten that for you, it was a surprise. And they're like, oh, we didn't know. So that's one of the bigger benefits of now having that functionality. Even if they don't transact right then and there, they know we do that too, which has always been a challenge to try and address with our customers, is that we can do it from start to finish, the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, so it's important to you that you have like real-time data and so updated like stock levels and prices for your shop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for me for several reasons. Like I mentioned earlier, we book out several weeks ahead of time. So we want to know we absolutely have everything we need for the job by the time it comes in, into our shop. Because if we don't, it brings things to a standstill and it's kind of a scramble to find things, and now you're overnight shipping parts that should have been here. So we try and do everything we can to prevent that. And we want our customers who shop online with us to experience the same thing. If they order something online and it says it's in stock, they want to see it within either a day or 5 days, depending on where it's coming from. So we like to be able to deliver that experience to them, and that's where the app that you guys have built with our distributor works really well.
Okay. All right, well, we didn't build your website for you, but a partner that we referred you to, Tim Roi, did. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
It was great. Tim Roi was great to work with. He was very receptive to what we wanted to do, and essentially built the site we envisioned while offering a lot of really good advice along the way on better ways to tweak it and different ways to do things. We're not website people, so some of the stuff we wanted just wasn't super practical from a user experience standpoint, and I understand that now. But when you're just thinking things, like this would be really cool, this would be really cool, and all of a sudden it becomes too burdened with niche features that would never get used by anybody but you. So Tim was very good at cutting it down to the essentials of what would make it a really good experience, and also a good interface, and just have an overall very good looking website that functions at a high level. And we have that, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, just circling back briefly to the Turn 14 to BigCommerce app. So how did you learn how to use that to manage your store?
Through trial and error. So, and also lots.
It was one of our support people who trained you on that.
No, actually Tim did. Tim was very helpful early on with trying to navigate that. And that's probably more on me because I just defaulted to him because I had been working directly with him. So I would just say, hey, how do I do this? And he's like, well, it's in the app. I'm like, well, can you show me? I'd like to just do it right now. And he would do that while we were building the site.
Okay, great.
Which was great for us because, I'm not well versed in these things, and I need to be reminded how certain functions work and stuff like that. And Tim was great throughout that process. Go like, oh, you're doing this, you need to change this and use this drop down. And I go, oh yeah, okay, you told me that. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, we don't, maybe we don't get the word out about this as much as we should, but anyone who wants to use any of our automotive data apps is welcome to contact our support, and they'd be happy to book a meeting and just like sit that person down and basically give them a whole tutorial on how to use that app to manage their stores. Which parts of the Turn 14 to BigCommerce app do you find that you use the most?
Just for me, in a simple way, just the brands that I want to sell, and which ones I want to actually populate in the store and show the inventory for. Because a distributor like Turn 14 has such a massive line card, and they sell a lot of parts that don't make sense for us to even offer on our website. And we want it to be not a niche website because we work on so many different makes and models, but we also didn't want to just offer a million different SKUs. So being able to navigate that is pretty intuitive and easy, and lets us sell the brands we know and trust, which was also real big. We didn't want to sell brands that we had personally used here that we know just either didn't function as intended, or maybe didn't handle any warranty situations very well, or maybe just don't fit very well. So it's nice to be able to just very easily point and click which ones we want on and off and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So the filter section of the app, did you actually curate the types of vehicle parts that you want available in your shop, or did you leave that wide open?
So initially I left it wide open, and I found that was an error on my end, because there was also certain things that weren't appropriate for us to sell, whether it be shipping a huge side steps and things like that for trucks, or just heavier parts that we would never get great shipping rates on. So that was a bit of a learning curve, but it was pretty easy to figure out.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, what more did you have to do with your site, if anything, before going live, or did Tim help you through that whole process?
No, Tim helped us through that whole process before we actually officially launched it. We did a couple of test runs and some test transactions, just to see the process worked, how the one-click shipping type of thing worked. I think I actually bought something myself and shipped it to my house just to make sure it all worked. It's a hat or something that was like $10. But that's what we did, and it worked as intended. So we're like, okay, well, this is, if I was a customer of mine, I'd be happy with this process. I got the email updates and all the stuff that's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So I felt confident in launching it once all that was working.
Great. So how do customers find your online store?
For us, it's a bit unique, I feel, because we're much more of a brick and mortar installer and retailer. So we're not spending thousands of dollars in Google ads or any real money towards the website at this point. It's, at this point, a bit of a, like I mentioned earlier, we just want to let people know that we can do this too. So I find more often than not, a lot of people that are ordering from it are, one, have already been customers, or they're local enough to already know who we are. Or some people do find us through sites like Google, things like that. And they can see, because we have a physical address, we have a physical shop, we have a real phone number, people you can talk to, an address that's easily available, a lot of 5-star reviews online just for our service. That makes them feel comfortable ordering a part from us, whereas they might not from just some random site that has the lowest price.
Mm-hmm. So reputation and word of mouth is what really serves as your,
for sure,
your advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will make an effort, to actually advertise the site itself to capture more sales at some point. But we've been busy opening other shops, so we've been spending resources for that.
So would you say that you use your website as like an online virtual parts desk, or like how does the flow work?
Yeah, we do. Actually, I'll use it a lot at the counter when customers are either waiting for their vehicle, or we still have a steady walk-in business too. When people are asking, what do you sell for my car? And I just spin the monitor around just like I showed you earlier and go, here's your year, make, model, and this is everything that's literally in stock a few miles down the road for your car. So it works really well for us because of our close proximity to Turn 14. But it would work well if we were in the middle of nowhere, because they can ship stuff so quick and you can see stuff within a day or two. I think for the whole country now, is 2 days or less for anything they have in their warehouses.
Mm-hmm. And now it's going to get even faster with their new, even bigger warehouse in Indiana.
With Indiana, yeah.
The final question about the Turn 14 to BigCommerce app. So is it a set it and forget it kind of a thing for you, or do you sometimes find you want to go in there and adjust things?
I haven't had to adjust much. So for me, it's more set it and forget it. But like I mentioned, I know I'm not using it to its fullest capability. One, because I just don't really have the time or need to at the moment. But when we're ready to really make that push, I imagine I'll be spending a lot of time with it, or hire somebody who's knowledgeable in it. But that's also part of one of the things I like about it is it can be set it and forget it, and I don't have to worry about, a great example is, we're huge on following MAP and manufacturers' pricing guidelines. We never want to be in a MAP violation, because we have worked in a lot of cases with a lot of these manufacturers directly, and for the ones that take their MAPs very seriously, we don't want to be perceived as violating that, because it's a violation of trust with them. And one of the best things about the integration is, one, we work with a lot Cobb Tuning, great relationship with those guys, sell a lot of their parts. They do a sale from time to time, and they're very strict about when the sale goes live and when it ends, and not having to touch the website at all when that's happening, but the prices change and they go up and down as they're supposed to, is awesome. Because the previous solution we had, wasn't a solution. It didn't do that. You had to manually do that, and when the pricing ends at midnight, you're up at midnight just to change it, So it's nice not having to do that. And that's for all the manufacturers. Or if they decide, like right now it's tax season, so if they're doing a tax sale, tax rebate sale, it's just automatically done, which makes it really easy. You're not clicking through brands and checking a list and seeing which one's down 10% this month and making the adjustment. It just does it automatically, which is really helpful.
Great, that's good to hear. Okay, final question. What's ahead for RT Tuning? Is there anything you want to tell our audience about?
What's next for us is we're going to continue growing what we do here. And like I mentioned earlier, we're also opening more shops, just not as RT Tuning. So they're general repair shops. That's our biggest focus at the moment.
Okay, and where are the new shops going to be?
Locally, we have one in Ambler that we opened about 1.5 years ago, which is about 6-7 miles from us. The next one is going to be in very close proximity to where we are now. And then the next one after that, we're trying to keep everything within that 5 to 8 mile or so radius, so that this can kind of serve as a hub to share resources with, and it's easy for me to go from shop to shop and kind of check in and visit and train and support.
You mentioned that you're just 5 minutes down the street from Turn 14, so you can always pop by there. You need parts extra fast.
It was 5 minutes. Now it's about 8 miles, but with traffic, it's a 25-30 minute drive now, but still incredibly convenient. Once upon a time, they were 2 minutes away, right down the street from where we are currently. But that was when they were a much smaller company with a much smaller warehouse. So it's a lot more parts to pick from these days with those guys.
All right, well, that's been really great. I feel like I've gotten some good insight here.
Great.
And so I'm sure, the people who watch these videos will as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.